You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch TV and movies about quests, heroes' journeys, capers, and adventures.
I have a feeling this episode is not going to be super plot point heavy because I think you and I are way more interested in like what this movie means and genre for sure, and how it sort of has influenced both of us and how we feel about movies in general and pop culture and all of that. So I just want folks, if you're here because you were looking for, you've like never listened and are looking for, we're looking for a like recap podcast on the Goonies or something, which is usually what I do after we record. I'll go listen to what other people have said. So if you're somebody like that, this one might not be for you. But if you love
it's
getting,
it's not like we're not going to talk about what happened, but you know, it's more about what this movie, its place in culture.
Exactly. We haven't covered many of the kind of movie I'm about to say, even though I love the genre so much. Just like big action adventure, like not fantasy, but like fantastical movies with like big set pieces, like like anything Spielberg's attached to. We haven't really, and
you're the Dawson of this podcast. Is that what you're saying?
That hurts.
I'm so sorry.
Wow, that really hurts.
Oh, that was a really harsh way to start. I apologize.
Wow.
I know. But, you know.
But, I mean.
If the movie poster fits.
Yeah, I grew up on them, too. Like.
Yeah.
He wasn't,
so did I.
Yeah.
I mean, we all did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you and I are, like we've said before, like, we're a decade apart in age, but a lot of these references, just these movies that became giant hits, just stuck around for your generation, like because they were so indelible. And
you were kind of the perfect age for them when they came out, because
absolutely.
So we watched Goonies. You're Jodie. I'm Andrea. This movie came out in 1985, right?
Yep.
And so I was -1, which would have put you at exactly the right age for it.
I was between 9 and 10 when this came out. I can't remember which month. I think it was in the summer, so I was probably 9. But
I think it's like July.
Yeah, I was the perfect age for this movie specifically. Like the younger kids were just slightly older than me by like a couple years. The older kids were like, you know, the age of my brothers actually. Like, you know, my brothers were 16 and 18 years old when I was born. So like that, it just was like, it could not have hit at a more perfect time in my life.
So cool.
So
hard for me to watch this movie objectively. Really hard.
I know.
Like
I don't know that I expect that from either of us. I mean, this is like, if you think of the kids movies that will stay with me basically forever, if you ask me to name only 5, this would be on that list.
Oh, 100%.
Like there's only a couple that even come close. Like, okay, this is a thought experiment. Kids movies specifically that have that place in your heart. For me, it would be this. It would be The Neverending Story.
Totally.
It would be, and I'm thinking specifically kids movies because like there's other things like Princess Bride, which is a little bit more like that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a movie I watched and loved when I was a kid, but it's not a kid-led adventure movie.
Exactly. Yeah, that list is short for me. Stand By Me is one of them. I mentioned that to you earlier when we were talking via text, but Stand By Me was huge for me.
You hear me? You could probably go back and hear me say this so many times, but I just love movies so much. So, like, I know I've said this before about so many. Maybe Stand By Me is my favorite movie. It might be. Wow. I kind of feel like even though it doesn't necessarily relate to Yellow Jackets, maybe later on we should do that movie because I am dying to watch it again. I was such a huge fan of River Phoenix. Totally.
It was like his death was a huge thing in like my Gen X world. And that movie has, the reason I keep thinking about it right now is because it has this idea of like young kids engaging with death.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
In a way that allows them to kind of allows the people watching it to kind of the kids watching it to process this idea of death in a safe way.
Absolutely. And it's so we're getting right into it, but
I know.
Okay, first of all, so my list. Goonies, Stand By Me, Neverending Story, but also and maybe even more so, Neverending Story 2. I love so
controversial
much. I love it. I love them both like with everything. Sandlot. And what would be 5?
Yeah. I think that there aren't, like, I think coming up with a list of 5 is like maybe the max that could be on that list for me. There's so many that I love, but that don't have the space in my heart that specifically Goonies and Neverending Story and Stand By Me have.
Well, they're the ones that, and like Sandlot gets close, but never quite there. It's exactly it. One of the things is exactly what you said, that they are like directly grappling with death.
Yeah.
It's also like.
Were you also a morbid kid?
Jodie, me?
I'm asking that rhetorically, not as an actual question. I'm aware.
Just the most. And then like also letting like a movie where the parents are out of the way and the kids get to talk like kids and be like kids and
lead the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. There
absolutely
just aren't a ton of them.
Yeah. No, it was really special for like a lot of reasons. I think we were before we started recording a little bit trying to figure out if there were other comps that fit into this specific genre. And there really aren't. There are ones that kind of combined with something else do, or that have a chunk of what this one does, but they don't have chunk. They don't have chunk.
I really think the closest one is Stand By Me.
Yeah, I think so too.
But it doesn't have the other thing that's nice about Goonies is it has a little whimsy on top of it.
It also has girls.
Also girls. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So, and one of them actually is like kind of cool and in on the adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think if Stand By Me had those two things, Stand By Me is if you take out the girls in the whimsy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And like I would almost put E.T. on that list for me because it was so important to me.
To decide.
But it's just on that bubble. Mm-hmm. It's like, it was so important to me at the time, but I don't find it something that I am drawn to want to rewatch and look at with adult eyes.
I feel
like it stays in childhood for me.
But it does have the similar thing, like you said, of kids getting to kind of have their own adventure.
Absolutely.
Be a little sad and a little weird and a little dark.
Yeah. But it doesn't have quite the same, for me, like rewatchability.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I agree with that.
I would love to hear from our listeners if they have things in this canon. I know that like I have a really good friend who Labyrinth is like number 1 on this list, or number 2 if she had to make one.
That's funny. I love Labyrinth. I'm trying to decide if it or something about it feels different to me. It's like weirdly, I don't know why Neverending, because now I'm building a different genre in my head, which are these like kid fantasy movies where like kids get to like take part in a fantasy world, which I was desperate to do as a child.
Yeah.
So, Labyrinth and Neverending Story, of course, and those kinds of movies. And I don't know why, to me, it feels like Neverending Story bridges those two. Or not bridges, but is a bridge between. That's the same thing. But I mean something a little different between them. Why I think there's a place for it on both of those lists in a way I don't put Labyrinth on.
I feel the same way. I think for me, I mean, I was not a huge Labyrinth fan. I liked it, but it was, I don't know. I think David Bowie scared me.
Fair.
In that movie.
Really fair.
Like in the other movies, the villains are still humans. And I'm not saying that David Bowie's like a villain, but the adults were like recognizable adults versus
whatever's
David Bowie's thing.
Yeah. I could see
which
that.
I, as an adult, fucking love.
Yeah.
But as a kid was maybe a little too unusual for me.
Wizard of Oz is another one, obviously. That's kind of the blueprint for these kinds of young child in the real world getting to experience. Yeah. I knew there was another one.
Not on my actual list, but sort of an honorable mention in the humor category is Short Circuit. So fucking good.
Love Short Circuit. And that's another genre. It's like adult movies.
Yeah.
That aren't for kids and aren't even really thinking about kids, because like Princess Bride is thinking about kids. There's a kid in it who's being told the story. But for some reason there is a certain kind of movie Short Circuit is like such a perfect example of, where I can't exactly say what that quality is, but that's such a good one.
I know. The number of times my best friend growing up and I would just be like, no, disassemble.
need input. Yeah. I love that movie.
It's so good.
Can't cover it because what's his face is in full on brown face, but
right.
Yeah.
I mean, a whole lot of these 80s movies have things in them that were just like, eek. I mean, this one as well.
We've had to give that disclaimer many a time.
Yeah.
Do you know the fun fact connection? There's so many fun facts about Goonies that I think are really common knowledge at this point that I don't know it's worth going over all of them, but Short Circuit takes place in Astoria, in the same town as Goonies.
Right.
And so does Free Willy.
And and it's been referred to as in the same universe as Gremlins because they mention Gremlins in the storytelling piece with the cop.
The thing I hadn't thought about until this watch is because it's when Chunk calls the police officer. That's a word I forgot. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't believe him, obviously, because Chunk is a famous storyteller. This is still one of the things he references. He's like, or when you said the little creatures that you put water on. But I'm like, what if in the, my headcanon for this movie is Chunk has never lied. And in that case, then the Gremlins, it would be in the same cinematic universe and he's telling the truth.
Right. I think that is what is implied in some of these lists of because I literally, in one of the fun facts list I was looking at, was very seriously saying no, this is in the Gremlins universe as well. And I'm like,
that's only true if Chunk's not lying.
Right.
I mean, I love it.
Exactly.
And then the other big one is that it takes place on the same day as when Michael J. Fox, when Marty goes back to the future.
That's right.
There's a newspaper with a month and a day. It's a Thursday. Somebody says today is Saturday, so 2 days after that day, blah, blah, blah. You can do the math of it. And that's fun and cute, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we should maybe talk quickly before we get into thematic stuff about, we mentioned this last week, but we did that interview with Tommy Avalone about his film, The House From. And specifically talking about the crowds that come to this house and the reactions of the various people, not just this house, but other houses that are famous from TV and movies. But it was fun after we had that interview with him to go back and watch this movie and look at that house and know that think about the interview with the woman who lived there and then the guy that lived there. It was just kind of fun to see it again after having that context.
It weirdly felt like recognizing an actor in a movie this time.
Yeah.
Of the house, just as opposed to it just being, part of the set. I'm like, oh, I know that guy.
Right. Absolutely. No, it was neat to see because it's if you watch that movie as much as I did as a kid, as soon as you see that house, there's something specific about it that is so absolutely perfect for this type of movie. It's a little bit rambling, it's a little bit run down, it's got that old Victorian house feel that I was obsessed with as a kid. It's perched right on that little hill overlooking the neighborhood, and it's just that plus the zip line that Data has. It's just such a kid fantasy house.
I was just going to say, it's kind of house where it makes total sense that there's a Rube Goldberg. I know the kids made it, but it's perfect for that. It makes so much sense that they have an attic full of pirate stuff.
Yes.
But you're right.
It's the dream. It's the dream, I mean, when I was a kid, I would fantasize about living in some big rambling old Victorian house that had lots of nooks and crannies and secret spaces and dumbwaiters and
where you'd maybe discover something you didn't even know was in the house you lived in for
so much some secret
so much about this movie. And it's man, I love our show because there's so many pieces of pop culture that feel so in my DNA that I haven't had a reason or chance to really look at this way. But this movie feels like what I was always playing at as a child and then fantasizing about the house and having an adventure like this, but they really get to do it.
Yeah. And the feeling of even though as a girl, a couple years younger than these kids, I didn't see myself specifically in this movie. I was gone from dawn till dusk on my bike, like looking for these types of adventures and not finding them in suburban New Jersey at that age.
We're getting to what I told you about the case I want to make for this movie.
Right. As being kind of a Jersey movie.
It's so kind of a Jersey movie. And I learned something today that makes me, in a roundabout way, even more correct. Correct's not the right word. I have even more of a justification for this. Because everything that you said there, and I know kids in other places and in other times have that experience too, but it's so... It's the same way, it's a similar to me way that like everybody has pizza, but like Jersey gets it. You know what I mean?
Sure,
but,
yeah.
So... They, little bit of background info. It is loosely based on this, like, what they thought was like an old urban legend about a Spanish galleon that had sunk off the shores of Astoria. And it was only in like 2022 that it was confirmed that it was real, that actually did happen, which I think is really fun. Originally, Richard Donner, he didn't write the screenplay, but he wanted to set it in Ohio. And it, to him, is a story similar to, he grew up exploring abandoned coal mines as a child. And we don't have coal mines, but
we have mental hospitals.
We have mental hospitals.
Same thing.
I mean, like, dangerous, for not kids, where children should be, unsupervised,
very like dark metaphorically,
and like, could probably die for real. And then also probably the real danger is the actual people, not the pirates or whatever. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh, that is a total overlay for me, the Ohio of it. And so, and we've talked, Ohio and Jersey are cousins.
I was just going to say, as we've said, Ohio and Jersey are, definitely siblings in their overall vibe. I actually was at a conference last year, or this year. Wow. Who knows? 2 months ago. I was at a conference and I met,
in your life.
I met someone from Ohio, and I brought up my theory that Ohio and New Jersey are siblings, and they agreed 100% instantly, as if it was just obvious fact.
Yeah. So you and I both do a lot of traveling around this country of ours, and it is the place where I feel most instantly comfortable when I'm there. I sort of know how to interact with the people a little bit easier, and the pace is closer to ours in a lot of ways. And
there's just a feeling of like defensiveness that the residents seem to have of their state that I can definitely relate to.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So totally. Do you...
It is a long walk to get there, to the Jersey Connection piece, but I'm willing to go on that walk.
But Ohio, much closer to Jersey than Astoria, and so
but this is not set in Ohio.
But it could have been.
It could have been,
and it's got the bones of it are spiritually Ohio.
Yeah.
And then I just remembered my other claim I told everybody I was going to defend last week, and this is much quicker, and I sort of already did it in last week's show notes, but I don't think it's that far a walk really it's not as far a walk as it might seem from Heavenly Creatures to get to Goonies.
Oh, yes. Please explain.
Is Heavenly Creatures a kids-led adventure movie?
The adventure being matricide?
Murdering.
The adventure being matricide, yeah.
That wasn't part of my argument until just a second.
I mean, what else would the adventure be?
Well, if you take out the pesky murder.
Before the murder. Okay, right,
it's about kids, like outsider kids, building a world together, becoming friends, really relying on each other, being out of the way of the adults a lot of the time.
Having sex and explaining that it's about how the saints would make love.
Again, aside
there's
from,
but there's a few
but I think it has more in common that is, again, maybe at first apparent. That's all.
Okay.
So yeah. So anyway, point is basically
it deals with death.
Exactly.
Just in a more
Goonies is
consequential way.
Yeah. If Heavenly Creatures were set in Jersey, it would be the Goonies, is what I'm saying right now.
Wow, that's quite a statement. That's quite a statement.
Before we get into the rest of the movie, do you want to share the absolutely amazing fact you told me yesterday?
Yeah. It's a little bit sad, unfortunately. I did not know this when I was originally excited to share this. But so, for those of you who don't know, I am an artist. I got my MFA about a little over a decade ago from the museum school in Boston. And my advisor for 3 years while I was there, my thesis advisor and my professor was a woman named Barbara Gallucci. And I did not know this when I was assigned to her. I was actually a little confused as to why I was assigned to her when I first looked at her work. And I think she was too when we first met. We were like, okay, well, we can make this work.
We'll figure it out.
Sure. I was an older student. I was in my 30s when I did my MFA.
I'll bet she loved you for that.
It's funny. At first, I feel like she was a little like, I don't know about this one. But then I think she did. We definitely kind of got each other eventually. And I think one of the reasons we actually got each other was because I completely... like, it's like when you know someone in one context and then you find out something about their past and everything else like snaps into a completely different focus about them. So this woman, Barbara, was a sculpture professor, an advisor for MFA students. She was a little bit bristly when you met her. She was a little bit like weird and a little unorganized and quirky and just kind of a hard person to kind of pin down. Right. And then the first class I took with her was a class called Four Sculptors. And it was like, you know, what it sounds like. We'd focus on 4 different sculptors. We'd make our own work. And randomly in conversation one day, she mentioned that she had worked on the set for the movie The Goonies.
So cool.
And I lost my goddamn mind.
I'm
because
like
everyone else,
up a little bit thinking about you. So cool.
I mean, so I was about 35 when I went for my MFA. And she just passed away. That's why I said this was sad. She was 71 when she passed. So she was in her 60s at the time. She was pretty young. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I didn't.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
She was in her like late 50s, early 60s when she was my professor. And so when she told me in class, it wasn't just me, there was a group of us. I was the only person that was remotely of the generation to appreciate what she had just said. And I literally lost my mind. I was like, what do you mean you worked on what did you do? What are you talking about? Tell me literally everything. And so she was working for International Light and Magic at the time in California. She worked for them for a while. She's worked with them on other very impressive things like, Return of the Jedi and Raiders of the Lost Ark. But this was the one to me that I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So she worked on the model ship that was that comes out at the end through the water.
The like ghost ship.
The ghost ship, yeah. She worked on that. There's actually a photo of her from Instagram from years ago working on that ship. I think I sent it to you. And she worked on other things as well. She talked about the big ship it was just like hearing her talk about it. It was so magical. And I just couldn't believe that my sculpture professor and advisor had this secret previous life. Like she worked on puppets and set pieces for 2 episodes of Pee-wee's Playhouse. Like
so cool.
The coolest human. Like, and when she told me this, I suddenly realized, I think the thing that I really connected to was like, I felt like an imposter going to grad school in my 30s because there were all these kids coming right out of art school. Right. And had a different... Yeah,
we had that in common, too. I didn't go to grad school. I think I would have been, what was 2019, 6 years ago? So I would have been like 33 or so when I was in grad school.
Yeah, and that experience is really specific because like there were people that were in between my age and undergrad age for sure.
Right.
But there were a lot of... It was 2010, and so it was right after the 2008 recession. There were a lot of kids that like just went to grad school because there were no jobs. They were like, well, I might as well do it now if I'm ever going to do it. And so talking to her and realizing that like she had a previous life. So she didn't get her MFA till after this time, right? She worked at ILM. She worked on movie sets. And then she went to grad school.
Fascinating.
And became a contemporary artist that was making this sort of like sophisticated architectural / sculptural work that was like commenting on the masculinity of that profession. And it's just like doing this really interesting stuff that would have given you no clue that she'd had this previous life. And I'd had a previous life as a graphic designer living in New York and like doing commercial work. And I was trying to refashion myself as like an actual contemporary artist. And I just like, I feel like I connected to her on that as well. And I was extremely sick my third year of grad school to the point where I was like hospitalized eventually. And she is one of the reasons I graduated, because she and my other two thesis advisors said to me, you have done enough work in your 2 years here that if you needed to recycle something, we would still give you your MFA because you've like worked more. Because I took it very seriously. I did a ton of work.
And they knew you weren't not like at your full potential because you didn't like, so I don't feel like it all of a sudden.
Right. And she kept encouraging me, and like I got my degree. And then after I graduated, she needed like documentation done and some photo work to help with a piece she was working on. So she hired me. I think she also kind of knew I needed money because I had like just moved back here and was like, so I did some work for her then. I got to see her amazing Brooklyn apartment that had all these like modular, it was like a studio with all these cool modular things in it. I got to see her Navy Yard studio, like just an incredible example. So I think that's kind of like the reason that it got me so much, was like, not just that this was someone who had this role in my life as like an advisor in like a transitional period, but like I never could picture myself in the career I currently have until I met her, because she'd had this past career that was so different, that was so commercial. She had refashioned herself into this other thing. She was older. She was weird and a little bit spiky and very disorganized and a little scatterbrained. And I was like, this person can do this. It wasn't like putting her down, but it was sort of like, oh, wait, you don't have to be the perfect version of this to do it. You could just need to be like a version and try, you know?
That's so valuable.
Yeah. So shout out to Barbara Gallucci, a former prop model set designer.
Just one of the most important sets of my childhood.
I know.
It's like the first real moment of like real, what feels like real actual magic happening in that movie. And it's just incredible.
I mean, that's the thing, the whole set and the ship that they built and the way that they like set it up is so perfect. For what they were going for. It feels huge. It feels impressive. But yeah, so just to wrap up the Barbara, like she worked on Poltergeist. She worked on Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. She worked on Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom.
No big.
I know. And these are like 1 year after. So 82 was Poltergeist, 83 was Star Wars, 84 was Indiana Jones. And then when she got to Goonies in 85, she was a supervising model maker. So she had a lot to do with specifically the ships was what she talked about, which I'm just amazed by. And then 2 episodes of Pee-wee's Playhouse in 86.
Friggin' cool.
She worked on the pilot, Ice Cream Soup, and she worked on Monster in the Playhouse, season 1, episode 9, puppet and prop fabrication and design. So
the dream.
I know.
It's so cool.
It's an amazing thing to think about, like the fact that she had her artwork had such an impact on my childhood, and then her teaching and her artwork had such an impact on my career. Shout out to all the people who had one career and then went into teaching later on.
It's amazing that you, again, had such a huge part in your childhood. And then it's not like you went to that school because she was advertising herself that way and you were seeking her out. And you just happened.
We got randomly paired together. I had actually requested to be paired with this other photographer who I'm glad I didn't, because it turns out she was literally never there. She was she was a bit more of an art celebrity than some of the other faculty members. So she was always doing something else and wouldn't have had any time for me. And Barbara did. Like, she commuted from New York City, so she wasn't on campus all that often, but she always found time for me.
That's
so
great.
yeah.
I'm glad you got to talk about her. today.
And honestly, like, I did not know she had passed. It happened last month. And
the timing on that.
I know. And I'm a little disappointed and surprised that she was not memorialized somehow on my grad school's social media. But when I posted about it, a lot of people from my grad program reached out to me and was like, oh my God, I had no idea. That's so sad. Like, so she touched a lot of lives through her artwork at this phase of her life and through her teaching.
Very cool.
Yeah. But I mean, just to kind of come back to the sets, like, you talked about the reveal of the ship, but like, it also feels like the adventuring keeps like it's almost like a video game in a weird way. Like new levels keep opening up.
Totally.
You know, like you go to the ocean, you see the rocks, then you go to the restaurant, then you go into the basement of the restaurant, then you go into the, through the fireplace, and then you go into the tunnels and the pipes. And it's like all these different like bosses you have to beat also. Like, there's the riddles and the piano and that piano, I had totally like not forgotten about, but like the impact of seeing the skeleton, pipe organ or whatever was just so cool. And watching the like floor fall away from them. Like, it's just, there's so many things that this movie did that was then like copied later on.
It's funny because it comes after, and also the Spielberg of it, but it is a little bit like Indiana Jones for kids.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's really like the rocks falling from the ceiling, the booby traps. It's just, yeah. I mean,
can we just like go through a list of things we love, like specific things we love about this movie? Because there's so many that jumped out for me this time. And one is the cartoon sound effects.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny. A lot of it is with Data and his traps. So when the like punching glove, when he hits Jake with it, he's like, oh yeah. Like he does like a cartoon, like, it's so funny. It's such a like, just like,
I also somehow
a little touch.
Always forget that this starts with a fake suicide.
This movie has
literally, I've seen this
rating.
Movie. I've seen this so many times and I always forget about that beginning. Like it doesn't even kind of need to be there, but it's just, yeah.
Imagine a PG-rated movie today that
starting with a fake hanging in a jail cell. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm in on this. Let's talk about our favorite things. Underrated, maybe not underrated, but underrated in my life. I don't hear about it enough. Logo. Like the logo and the font of Goonies with the skull on top of the eye is just so lasting. It's designed so well. It's like cartoony, but not too cartoony. It's like a little bit of like the cartoony letters, but then the actual skull, like more realistic.
That's the movie right there, isn't it? You're so right. That's that's great.
It's so well designed. I love Ma.
She's so good.
I was terrified of her.
She's genuinely scary.
And I love her so much.
And hold on.
Anne Ramsey.
She's Mama from Throw Mama from the Train. That's an example of a movie for adults that's like, for some reason I loved so much as a kid. It's like Short Circuit, Throw Mama from the Train. Oh, Kindergarten Cop is another movie I love that is set in Astoria.
Yeah. She passed away just a couple years after Goonies. She passed away in 1988.
But she's just so singular. I think, did you already say that about her? She's like one of those, just the vibe is established immediately if you put her in a movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she was sort of like the fear I had of this woman. It's very Large Marge.
Totally Large Marge.
I
could totally see
in terms of the level of like fear of a very odd, scary, very unpredictable woman.
Yeah. This movie, that's the thing too, is that like Sandlot, and then Neverending Story, those movies, I think this is the only one that I thought was genuinely scary too when I was a kid. There are moments that are, it is more the people than anything else, but there are actual scares for me in this movie that.
Well, there's like, it's the joy that they take in like torturing the kids. It's like they have a glee about it all.
Yeah.
You know, that's a bit frightening. What else you got?
Oh man. Perfect soundtrack, perfect theme song.
Yes, absolutely. Like the Cyndi Lauper of it all to me is such a huge piece of why this all works. That music from that time frame today, it sounds so maybe cheesy to people who didn't like grow up at the time, but man, Cyndi Lauper was the coolest.
Yeah, I think that song is unironically just so good. It's so
Would
catchy.
the kids call it like a bop?
I think the kids might call it a bop.
They might call it a bop.
It really is. Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
There's a Newfound Glory. There's a Newfound Glory. Newfound Glory. They're a pop punk band. If you're not a genre pop punk aficionado, but they've released a couple of cover albums, and they have such a good cover of the song. I love it so much. We've talked about it enough that I can drop a few seconds in here, and I dare them to try to stop us. It's great.
I mean, I cannot overstate my love for Data and his gadgets.
Data and his gadgets. So glad you brought him up.
So we were texting this morning about who we may or may not have had crushes on in this film.
Hold, please. Timestamping this, recording it into my phone. It is 9:01 a.m. Jodie has just said, I can't wait to hear who you had a crush on in this movie, if anyone. My answer may or may not surprise you. I'm predicting it's Data. Just for the record. Just for the record.
I have been seen in a way that I'm not sure I'm comfortable with. So I feel like the obvious answer is Steph, because Martha Plimpton is by far the coolest person in this film.
That's the kind of crush it was for me as a child, though, where it was like, I thought she was so cool. I was right.
Yeah.
But it was not as like,
Yeah, my crush on her was the kind of crush that I didn't realize was a crush at the time. It was like, I wasn't ready to understand what that was.
Right.
It was like 9. But Data, like, give me a funny nerd with a special interest.
Totally.
And I am in love. I am in love. His sense of humor was everything to me. His disdain for his friends and the fact that he is so much smarter than them.
When he's going on that rant at the end where he's like, I'm just trying to make my little traps. I'm having fun. Like, I don't know what.
I need to actually read some of that because I was like laughing out loud.
That's another thing.
It made me so happy.
That this movie gets so right with the kids being kids is like, they do all kind of pick on each other, but none of them are bullies to each other, except for how they treat Chunk.
Mouth, especially the way Mouth treats Chunk. That's kind of the worst of it.
But also, I think it has been my experience that lots of friend groups have the kid who is a little too mean to one of the other kids.
Yes.
But they're all still friends. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Mouth was like the biggest sort of troublemaker of it all, but setting booty traps. The thing I had forgotten, I always thought of this as them making fun of his accent, but actually Mikey is the one who says it wrong first. He says booty traps, and Data's like, you mean booby traps?
And then it flips.
And then it keeps coming back and flips, yeah.
Well, because that's so funny. Because the thing that does kind of catch with this movie as one of the things that I think, like, if you're somebody who's not even like hasn't watched it a million times, if you're like, tell me what you know about Goonies, booty traps is going to be one of them. But it is Sean Astin in general who has all the like, he misspeaks throughout the whole movie. And then the other thing I love is the way you see how these kids are a product of their parents, because his mom does it. And then when you meet Data's dad and he's got the camera, I love that stuff.
I love it too.
His little rant pulled up.
I'm getting to it. Yeah. I've got the script and it's quite long. This is 120 pages. It's a very long script. Because it goes so fast. The dialogue moves really fast.
But they're talking and yelling the whole time.
I know.
There's a lot of...
Well, so one thing about that I thought was really funny. There's a lot of interviews with Spielberg and with Richard Donner about how hard it was to wrangle these kids and how obnoxious they all were.
I kind of like that they didn't. It feels like they actually gave up and just didn't try that hard and just let them yell over each other. And
and that makes it feel more real. But one of the funny stories I heard was after the wrap of the movie, Richard Donner, do you know the story? Richard Donner went on vacation to Hawaii.
I have the video. I'll drop the audio in because it's so funny. Go ahead. You tell it.
Yeah. So after the wrap, he went on a vacation to Hawaii, and Steven Spielberg paid for and organized all the kids to fly to Hawaii and crash his vacation.
It's
that is diabolical.
What the hell are you doing here?
Steven, it's a gift from Steven.
Oh my God.
Hey, Dick, we're going to stay with you the whole time you're here.
Oh my God.
Wait, I hear something.
Shut up!
No reason to do it except because that's so funny.
Yeah. Just to kind of tweak him. Be like, now you're going to relax? No. Also, the original script, we can talk about the scenes that didn't make the cut, but in the original script, there's so much description and narration of the characters and their actions. It's really actually quite interesting. One of them, so I'm looking for this Data scene, and it says, there are bottle rockets, sparklers, firecrackers. Everything shoots from Data's body, but nothing works. Data's body is a literal explosion of junk! ! It's just the way that they describe all of these things is really funny. This does include the octopus scene as well, this one. Which we should talk about.
I was going to say, what did you make before? I only just learned this time that they actually did shoot an octopus scene.
Me too.
Did you think... Because it's Data who says it, right? So it didn't...
The octopus being scary, yeah.
Yeah, at the end. And I was like, I wonder if we're supposed to assume he's also kind of telling tales a little bit. When, watching it before this. Or if it was...
Because they left it in.
Right.
So, yeah, I just want to read a couple bits from Data's speech here, because this is there's nothing I like more than an exasperated child. And so it's when Data falls through the floor, and then Josh Brolin, Brandt comes down the stairs, and you hear everyone go, Data, are you okay? And he goes, Data's okay, but Data's tired of falling, and Data's tired of skeletons. And Brandt says, why didn't you use the stairs? And he says, use the stairs. Some idiot up there tells me to use the stairs when Data's falling. Data says nobody cares anymore. Stairs. And then Mikey says Data's okay. They're using his language. Yeah. He says, and they tell me I have stupid inventions, and I'm spending months and months studying them and inventing them. God, what fun I have.
He's so
He's so frustrated with them. And it's really funny because his inventions do sometimes work.
Yeah. And his ideas
are actually
good.
Quite useful. Slick Shoes? Legendary.
Exactly.
Slick Shoes is legendary. Slick Shoes is chef's kiss, perfect moment.
Also there's a lot of Home Alone. I wish he had a friend in that movie, because in general, Home Alone is a kid-led adventure movie. The adults in it are real villains. They're clowns, but they want to kill him. There's real violence in the movie. He torches Joe Pesci's head off, and it looks, you know what I mean? I think there's some cursing in it. And then also it's, booby traps and all of that. So,
Home Alone, no, absolutely.
Home Alone might be, I put it aside because it's a holiday movie and that's its primary genre. But that is one of those movies for me as a kid.
Yeah, I was the wrong generation for that.
Makes sense.
It didn't get me. It would have.
Yeah.
But it just didn't. I think we might as well at this moment just say the thing about Chunk, which is that the fat shaming in this movie is off the fucking charts. I had forgotten how much it comes up, how every single thing about Chunk's character is about his body.
And how obsessed with food he is. That at the end, his mom shows up with his pizza.
Right.
That he's like eating the ice cream throughout. Yeah.
Right. And not about the fact that he's like one of the only decent people in the group. Like he's kind. He's like he's clumsy. And so they're constantly like tricking him into like breaking through doors. And, you know, I did also sadly read that the guy who played him really wasn't happy about that. Like it wasn't that he didn't realize what was being said.
Right.
He's now a very successful entertainment lawyer who actually represents Ki-Hui Kwan, and he is a very trim man now, which I noted.
It's like his two defining characteristics are he slimmed down and became an entertainment lawyer.
Yep. Yeah, this was his only film role, I think. And honestly, if my only film role was almost 2 hours of people making fun of my body, I might be done with Hollywood in that way as well.
But he seems to be doing well for himself.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, he's representing someone who is like, I mean...
He's the golden boy now.
Yeah, deservedly so. The other thing that obviously rings a bit odd now, to say the least, is sloth.
Yeah.
And that is not easy to get around.
We were fine with
so fine with it. Didn't think about it at all.
No. And also 5 hours in the makeup chair every day. But they
call him an it.
Yeah. It's really bad.
And then he's chained in a basement.
He's chained in a basement. They're just so cruel to him because of his
deformity.
Yeah.
And it's never explained either. At the end, Mama just says she dropped him a couple of times, and it's like, well, that's not
right.
The same thing.
Are we? Or I guess we're just supposed to think that.
I don't know.
It's really bizarre. But he is. It is hard to talk about him without doing the thing of but he's so sweet and gentle and
right.
But he is so sweet and gentle, and then the fact that it's Sloth and Chunk who bond is troublesome, but also
it's the two most rejected people kind of finding each other.
Though at the end, when Chunk's like, "You're gonna come live with me now," I'm like, "You gotta check with your mom." What do you mean?
I know.
You can't just bring a grown man into your home.
I mean,
but I think he probably does. You can tell that. That's the other thing that's nice is all of these parents, they care about their kids. They're not
100%. Yeah. You could actually see in the world of this movie, the parents being like, okay, I guess we have a new child, question mark.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
But yeah, no, the whole sloth thing is kind of hard to watch. And yet when he yells, "Hey, you guys," my heart just grows. You know that's a reference to the Electric Company, the TV show?
No.
And maybe it's not, it has to be a reference. It's just so specific. So I didn't realize this at the time, but so the Electric Company is the show that came on after Mr. Rogers, which came on after Sesame Street. And at the very beginning in the intro, the theme song part, Rita Moreno yells, "Hey, you guys."
Yeah,
and it's the exact same tone.
It totally makes sense. This, I thought, okay, I've got 12 thoughts about this right now. One is this movie. Another thing I love about this movie is just how pop full of chock culture it is. How chock full of pop culture it is. And I think for some reason, it looks like you're totally right, and it makes total sense.
Yeah, but I just had to check the dates and make sure. But yeah, Electric Company was 71 to 77. Rita Moreno was a cast member. Yeah, and she screamed the show's opening line, "Hey, you guys."
I don't know what I thought it was a reference to, but yeah.
I loved the Electric Company. I never made that connection. At least not mentally, like, that I was aware of.
Right.
But yeah, when he yells that, it's like, oh, the music swelling and them coming down the sail. Like, it's just such a triumphant moment.
There are so many moments in this movie where I'm like, oh, I'm about to cry. Like, and
as someone who was like severely bullied as a kid,
right,
the idea that the two most made fun of people in this whole movie are the ones that saved the day, like, I cannot tell you how important that felt.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of how inappropriate both of those characters were portrayed inappropriately, it still was like, the one that you would not leave alone and that you made fun of the entire time is the one you need to save you. Are you also aware about the gorillas that never made the movie? Did you find this?
I don't know. I don't think
I had heard about the octopus thing before, vaguely. There was, and it was actually shot by Spielberg himself. Apparently Spielberg loves gorillas.
Apparently Spielberg can't help himself but to get in on a movie whether he's directing it or not. He's like famous for that.
Yeah. Well, he did that here. And so basically there is a scene that was shot that never aired that they cannot apparently find anymore. Like they've looked for it. I know. It's like, I think it's hard to find. But basically during the scenes where they're shaking the pipes and it's affecting things going on in the country club with the guy in the shower and Troy on the toilet. On the toilet, yeah. One other thank you so much for adding that. So in case people missed your Troylet comment. But basically, so when they're shaking the pipes, one of the things that was supposed to result in the original script was animals escaping from a zoo somehow.
Why not?
And so basically, the deleted scene that was filmed was two gorillas named Bonzo and Bertha steal Troy's car.
Fun. Oh, fun.
Yeah. So sadly we don't have Bonzo and Bertha in that moment, but I think it has to do maybe with, they were people in gorilla suits, I think, in the filming. And what I saw about the octopus was that it just wasn't realistic enough. The special effects just didn't work. Like, it was clear. They were talking about how in the footage, did you watch the footage, the octopus footage?
No, I didn't know we could.
You can see it. Yeah. I can share. Let me share it with you.
Yeah, obviously so much of this is practical effects.
Yeah, and the octopus just didn't work. Like, there's in one of the interviews I saw, one of the, I think it was with Richard Donner, he basically says, like, it's just the tentacles, like, trying to, like, wrap around that. It just looked really, really fake.
8 Arms to Hold You, though, the song that features prominently there, and it's in the movie a little bit before they go underground, actually, I think. But it was recorded for the Goonies soundtrack by a band called Goon Squad. And it apparently reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot Dance Club Play chart.
Really? Wow. Speaking of music, are you aware of the band The Fratellis?
Yes.
From Scotland?
Yeah.
I love that they just obviously are like, it's named after the guys in the Goonies. Of course.
Yeah, well, of course it was. Here's something I love. Maybe this is just something I want to talk about. When Mikey finds One-Eyed Willie on his own and gets to, like, have a little minute with him, and he says, he's like, Willie, you were the first Goonie, which is like, yeah, I guess.
I mean, I guess.
I guess. But there is something very kid-like about that immediate identification with something for some reason. Like,
yes.
Why? I get, is it because he was
a pirate? Well,
I wonder if it's because pirates don't wear eye patches because they all lose their eye. It's so they can move it to the other side to adjust. When they go in the ship, it's darker than being above. And so they can move it from eye to eye. Do you know what I mean? One eye is always adjusted for darkness and one is always adjusted for light.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
So that's why pirates are actually associated with eye patches, but One-Eyed Willie actually only has one eye, so he's a little bit of a listen, as a former eye patch kid, I don't know if I've confessed that on this podcast, but I sort of understand what he means by
My
that.
cousin Jen was an eye patch kid. Yeah.
Some of us were eye patch kids. And in that way, we were all kind of Goonies, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And so I see that.
I also read that in the original idea for the connection between Mikey and One-Eyed Willie, and I don't know if this is true. I wish I could remember where I read it, but it was that One-Eyed Willie was also supposed to be like
I heard
an asthmatic.
Wait, I heard yes.
With like an early version of an inhaler.
I have this confirmed because I heard, I'll have to find the link, but in these tabs, I'll drop this into.
Like a 1600s inhaler?
He calls it's Richard Donner and Spielberg. I think it's the two of them.
There's One-Eyed Willie sitting at the head of the table where he's died. Maybe he's got a diary there. Mm-hmm. He's got his own stack of gold coins.
That's a great thing.
And he looks at him, and we can have a little soliloquy for a moment.
You know what else he's got?
What?
He's got an ancient asthma.
He could. One of those.
With the finger he had, It's like asthma, you know.
That's crazy.
Jodie, that's confirmed, and you'll hear it when you listen back to this episode. They're delighted by it. Like, you can tell they know it's dumb but funny.
Yeah.
And are like, so I'm a little bummed that's not in there, but maybe that's where maybe the line stayed, you know? Like, they're like, he'll see his apparatus and then say, you were the first Goonie. But when he says you were the first Goonie, I get a little choked up. I think it's so sweet.
Yeah. It's funny watching it this time around. I don't know how I felt about Mikey when I was a kid. I think I didn't think about Mikey. I was just kind of like, he's the center of this, but like Data's funnier. Like, you know, the girls are girls, and so they're probably more. Do
you know how many times in my life I heard, Andy, you Goonie? It was like every friend of mine's dad favorite thing to say to me.
Oh my God.
They all thought they were so funny.
And famously, this is Andy with a Y.
Andy with a Y. As I said last week, not for girls. Sorry.
Yes, we're going the gender essentialist route on this pod now.
Just on this and only this.
Right. But I don't think I thought much of Mikey. I was just kind of like rooting for him as a kid, but I found him really whiny this time. I think this is too much information, but I think my maternal instincts have passed. Like, I didn't have children.
Right.
And for a while there, that was devastating, and now it's not. Mm-hmm. And now when I'm around kids, I'm like, I like them. Sometimes I really like them. Sometimes I even meet a kid where I'm like, wow, if I had a kid, I would love my kid to be like that. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I can deal with kids and enjoy it when they're my family. Right. And that's about it. Mm-hmm. And so this time I was like, shut up already. Like, you're so worried about everything and you're so whiny. And I felt kind of bad about it. But also, like, there's so many other types of kids in this movie that I really like. Like, I always felt like Andy was annoying also for a different reason.
Yeah, I feel bad feeling that way about her, but she is the like flattest written, and like even when she's going on that rant about how like she should have just let what's his face keep looking down her shirt and like that whole thing where I'm like, man, that is written to me. It's like, to me it feels like a middle-aged man writing a middle-aged woman writing a teen girl. Like,
it's just, like, what are your two options are this scary near-death adventure with this one boy, or being sexually like harassed by this other boy, and that is your two options in life.
It's so, and especially because even as silly and sort of caricature-y as the other kids can be in some ways, like, she really feels the least like a real person in this, I think. Like, even including the way they treat Chunk and the way they treat Data. Like Data gets that little rant, you know, and she, I
mean, the only thing that actually humanizes her for me, and it's also weird and problematic, is the way she treats Mikey after she realizes she kissed him. Like,
she should be horrified, but I know what you mean, that she doesn't like
she realizes what it meant to him.
Right.
And is gentle with him around that.
Mm-hmm. And it cures his asthma. So that's good.
Right. Exactly.
what is going on in that scene at the end? What is she saying to him when she says, if you keep kissing girls like that, the parts of you that don't work? What?
I know. I never heard it that way until this time.
Well, and it's problematic, I think, but it doesn't make sense. Because what is she?
No.
Is she talking about? It sounds like she's being so inappropriate.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know.
No, it's not meant that way. I think it's meant more like that he's shy and he's like,
that's not how you would say that. And then I'm like, maybe she means his lungs.
I know. I don't understand what it's supposed to mean.
None of it makes sense.
I know.
Speaking of the parts of you that don't work, another thing that's so funny that would never make it into a PG movie is when the statue breaks at the beginning and Mikey says, it's my mom's most favorite part.
Yeah. And they put it on upside
down.
Yeah. No, I know. I will say that the one thing I do remember feeling about Mikey is a strong identification with his constantly being ill. Like, I didn't have asthma, but I had severe, I've mentioned this before, I think, hay fever as a kid, to the point where I couldn't go outside during gym. And like my mom would literally, if I'd had an older brother or sister at home, told them not to let me go outside during the bad allergy days. Like, and so... But I will say that the amount of times he uses that inhaler does seem excessive and inappropriate and maybe damaging.
Yeah, I think I said to you it's his emotional support inhaler.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to use it that many times in a day. Like, he needs a different option. Yeah,
he seems to not be using it for asthma. He seems to be using it for comfort, and that is a little different.
He should just smoke cigarettes like the rest of us did at that age.
Exactly. That's sort of what it feels more like.
So yeah, all that to say, I found Mikey a little more irritating this time around, but I think it's probably because I was also probably a whiny, irritating child that was always sick, and like, maybe it's just identification more than anything else.
Totally, I can see that.
Did you read about the alternate ending? The original, they like changed a few things at the end?
I don't think so.
So originally they didn't have the ghost ship leaving in the background.
Because magic's real.
Right. And so the scene that they originally had of the solution, the marble bag with the jewels in it, happened...
Those jewels, by the way.
Oh my God, I know. But in the original version, it happened in the laundry room, and Rosalita found them when she was like getting ready to put his clothes in the wash or whatever. But when they decided they wanted to have the ship go by, then they decided to do a version of it where she found it on site on the beach. But my problem that I have with this whole bit about Rosalita and all of that is the fact that whenever someone's speaking in another language in this movie, they do not translate it on the screen. The subtitles don't. It just says speaking in Spanish, speaking in Italian. And like... It's the Fratellis and it's Rosalita. And also, when Data speaks at the end in Cantonese, it just says speaking in Cantonese. I kind of wanted to know, like, especially in the scene where Rosalita comes in with the groceries and she sees Brandt tied up in the chair.
Yeah.
She's speaking in Spanish and she's probably saying, oh my God, these fucking crazy people. Like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Like, oh, well, who cares what she has to say?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
like, I want to know what Rosalita's reactions are to these insane people. And they're not telling us by translating what she's actually saying. And I could probably figure it out if I wanted to somehow, but I didn't actually see if there is a translation out there, which I should. But I wished it was in the captions because that would have been my preferred way of finding that out.
Yeah, I guess a generous read on that is it puts us in the same position as the characters in the movie, but we're not characters in the movie. We're watching the movie, so.
Right. Should we talk a little bit about the critical reaction at the time? I don't want to go too far into this because it's not like shocking or anything. But looking back, the fact that it's such a beloved movie, that it has literally like a 77% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is way too low.
Yeah. Ebert liked it.
I know. So the average rating is 6.5 out of 10. Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars. And
That's so funny because but what I want to comment before you give me a fuller picture of this is I just kind of always trust that whatever Ebert thought about a movie reflected what the rest of the critical opinion was at the time. And so, because I think you're going to share some of his review, which is really pretty complimentary.
Yeah, so Roger Ebert and also Gene Siskel both gave 3 out of 4 stars. Roger Ebert said it's a smooth mixture of the usual ingredients from Steven Spielberg action movies made special because of the high-energy performances of the kids who have the adventures. And then Gene Siskel said, after a dull start, some kind of minor movie miracle takes place and the Goonies gets its act together as the kids stop trading wisecracks and get closer to finding their long-lost pirate treasure, thereby to help save their parents' homes. Only then do we accept the Goonies for what it is, a funny, juvenile, wind-up toy about kids in perilous comic book situations.
I mean, that's part of it, but I think I want to read a little bit more of Ebert because I think he really gets it in a way it sounds like Siskel maybe didn't.
Yeah.
There used to be children's movies and adult movies. This is sort of what you and I are talking about. Now, Spielberg has found an in-between niche for young teenagers who have fairly sophisticated tastes in horror. Goonies, like Gremlins, walks a thin line between the cheerful and the gruesome, and the very scenes the adults might object to are the ones the kids will like best.
Yeah, that's really insightful. This Janet Maslin of the New York Times at the time.
Hold on, I'm so sorry. This is... We can just read this whole review. Along the way, they pick up a couple of girls whose function is to swap spit and get bats in their hair. He's kind of right about that.
He is.
He is kind of right.
Also, those bats. Those bats are literally like paper mache and bow ties on string.
I'm
literally
so charmed by that stuff.
I know. The bats are really funny.
I would so much rather that than CGI bats.
Well, it's Emmett Otter, like where you can see the strings of the puppets.
Exactly.
Like when they're on the ice. Yeah. But Janet Maslin of the New York Times, giving one of the most easily disproven reviews I've ever seen, said that the film has a kind of breakneck pacing that keeps it fast, funny, ingenious, entertaining, and only a small point while the movie is in progress, almost entirely without staying power. Janet. 40 years later.
Yeah, how's that lack of staying power going for you? One thing this Ebert review reminded me of is that one of the reasons I was reading that they get to say shit so much is if you listen, it's often at a part when the music is really loud or there's a lot of other talking. And then also that I'm saying he, I guess it was Donner, but in my head, this is just the Spielberg movie, really carefully put the curse words at the very beginning or end of a scene. So it would be easy to crop it. And then Data, when he says shit, he spells it out. Yes, and that's he told his mom told him that she didn't want him to curse in the movie. Yeah, but then it's such a cute little addition, and also probably helped with that PG rating.
Totally. I thought this was just an interesting turn of phrase. Michael Wilmington of the LA Times wrote that the film resembles nothing so much as a wildly exaggerated funfair ride, one that keeps comically exposing you to dangers, comically pulling you away, and then finally, with a shivering plop, deposits you on dry land in the bosom of your family. Which is like a very elaborate way of saying something actually quite accurate. Mm-hmm. Because it goes back to
plop.
Yeah, but it does. It goes back to what we were saying about how it's a safe way for kids to engage with the idea of death by watching because the families are 100% good, you know, and the families are safe. And so the kids are never in danger from their own people.
Right.
It's outside forces. And at the end, they're returned to the safety of their families.
It is. It's like a little mini hero's journey.
Yes.
They literally go, you know, into the underworld and return to the safety and order of the more civilized world. And
yeah, absolutely. I also, so thinking about, you had said something about how it's hard to think of other movies that play like this one does with so many different genres at this time. And I was reading an article, I think in The Independent, and it said, this made me think of what you were talking about. It said the Goonies felt like 15 different original movies hurtling into each other at once, bouncing from genre to genre. There were traces of a teen comedy, the kids smashing the penis off a statue. There was a romance, Brolin and Andy. There was horror, a frozen corpse. There was crime thriller elements.
Yeah, there's a real dead body in this movie. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing.
Yeah. And the thing that they said to kind of tie this in was, they said, in a way, this gave the film its innocent feel, the authentic kid-like lens through which it forces the viewer to watch. When you were a kid, did you play with cowboys and Indians during toy time? Problematic, but we know. Mm-hmm. Or did you play cowboys and Indians and spacemen and dinosaurs and whatever other playthings you had at hand. Kids don't see genre, and neither did the Goonies. It was an unbridled imagination reflective of the audience it wanted to entertain. So I do think that is a really precise way of understanding why this worked, is because kids don't see genre, right? Like you play with whatever you have at hand, and you jump from genre to genre in your imagination.
Yeah, and when you're a kid, I didn't think like, oh, I like action movies, or I like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it totally maps on. That's cool.
They cut out they had an oath. Not
I've
just
heard the
Goonies
oath,
never say die, but they had an actual oath, which I thought was cute that they cut out.
I love that they're a little child gang. That's also like a very kid thing.
Yes. The kids that you run around the neighborhood with.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other slightly disturbing fun facts. One-Eyed Willie's head was an actual human skull.
Yeah.
That is, at least according to when this article was written, which is not that long ago, is in the home of Richard Donner.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. The other sort of disturbing one that I found is that, you probably saw this too, production designer Michael Riva thought that the treasure map looked too new. Mm-hmm. So he spent an afternoon aging it. Totally normal. Mm-hmm. Poured coffee on the map.
Right. Yep.
He wanted to add a little blood, and instead of using paint because they were out or waiting, he just cut his finger and dripped his own blood on it. What?
It's not great. It's not a great choice.
It's not sanitary.
I was going to say OSHA would probably have something to say about that, I think.
Yeah. That's not okay. And the other fun fact that I loved was that the Fratelli brothers actually really didn't get along in like a comical way. Apparently, Robert nailed Joey Pants's dressing room door shut. Mm-hmm. In a fact that both of them have confirmed.
Yeah, and I think that then Joey Pants stole his license plate, I think is their retaliation there.
Yeah. They had it seems like they had a prank relationship that actually had some real animosity in it, but it never boiled over beyond that.
I wonder if it started as a prank war that slowly turned to, and then both of them realize they're still playing pranks but hating each other.
Yeah, exactly. I could totally see that.
Yeah.
The Fratellis are Ma is really, really quite plainly evil. The only funny thing I think that she says that is legitimately humorous is when she closes the door on them and says kids suck. Which is cool. But the Fratellis, I forgot about the part which I love, where they're trying to get Chunk to confess. Oh. And he confesses everything he's ever done. Really also, good. A lot of that was improvised by the actor, which Go ahead.
Yeah, he is so charming. And so good. But except for apparently the Spielberg or the vomit in the theater story is something Spielberg actually at least claims to have done as a kid.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
That's horrifying. I don't know. But the other things he kind of came up with, the thing about his sister Edith, apparently the actor actually has a sister named Edith. There's all these things that he kind of on the spot just made up. But my point was basically just that in that scene where he is confessing to everything he's ever done throughout his entire life, we first see them be kind of annoyed with him, and then we come back to the scene, and Jake Fratelli is kind of like this kid. He's warming to him through all of these stories, and I'm kind of this kid's a funny kid.
Give him a break.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's kind of okay. I like him.
There's a lot of stuff that just feels really natural in this movie. That line read is one of them that always stands out to me. Mm-hmm. And there are just a few, when this is so specific and not what we're talking about at all, but when Andy is telling Steph about elbowing what's his face in the nose, the way she says I
think it's the lip. But yeah.
Or in the lip, yeah. The way she says it sounds like they just caught the two of them talking about something that really happened. The kids in this movie are so natural.
Well, and I think the production let them be natural whenever they felt like they could, you know, like the talking over each other, like some of the scenes where he's talking about the legend of One-Eyed Willie when Mikey is, apparently that's not scripted. They basically, like, I think it was Richard Donner, like, told him the story and then just turned the camera on and said, tell the story I just told you, so it would come out more naturally.
I think there's probably a real art to directing kids. I watched part of, it's like 25 minutes long, Sean Astin's audition for the movie. And he does like a handful of takes. And the first one, he's so nervous. And then as I was clicking through, there's like bits of Donner and whoever's in the room just being like, cool, the kids slow down. They like get him a chair. They're like joking with him. And then at one point he's like, let it go. Just slow down. No need to rush it. And you see him kind of click into it.
I mean, I think that really the naturalistic feeling of a lot of this is partly maybe the chemistry of the group, but it has to also be partly the way that they were directed, like, and how much freedom they were given to be kids,
right?
You know, not just kid actors, but like kids,
actual kids. Exactly.
Yeah. And Martha Plimpton sells her sarcastic ass lines. One of my absolute favorite moments that I had forgotten about is when Brant hears the noise and starts to go to move the rock. And she says, Brant, God put that rock there for a purpose, and I'm not sure you should move it. And then I wrote bats.
You gotta listen to Martha Plimpton.
Yeah. She has some really good lines in it.
She's great at that kind of just straightforward.
Yeah. Just so over it. But also has this is what I mean about how Andy, the character, not my co-host, is a flatter character, because you could see her, Steph, just being the wisecracking best friend, and she kind of is, but she is the one that says, isn't she, that these are people's wishes? Like, in the scene where they're in the well, I think that's her that says that.
I'm so focused on Mouth in that scene because he's so good and that's like one of my favorite things in any movie ever. But I think you're right.
Yeah, it is Steph. She says, wait, stop. You can't do this. And Data and Mikey both are like, why? And she says, because these are somebody else's wishes. They're somebody else's dreams. She's the one that prompts Mouth to say that. So, yeah, she's allowed to be the wisecracking best friend and smart, but also, like, sincere and thoughtful. And she's realistic. Andy is, like, being a goofball and is like, oh, he's being so sweet. And she says, oh, come on. Where are you? You're in the clouds and we're in a basement. Oh, God.
She's right.
Yeah, she is.
What else?
Do we want to talk about the on-again, off-again reboot factor here?
Yeah, I guess we have to. How do you feel about it? I know you can't tell how I feel about it.
Don't touch this fucking movie. What are you doing? So there's certain things that you just don't need to go back to, and this is one of them. The cast on and off over the years have always said that, many of them have, that they'd be open to like a sequel, reboot, something idea. And obviously that there's been interest in it on and off for a long time. But very recently, so this year in February, because it had been announced like that they were thinking about it, and then people in the cast were like, I don't know, they haven't talked to us, you know. But this year on February 24th, 2025, it was announced that Goonies 2 was officially in the works. So interestingly, so Richard Donner passed away in the meantime. He passed away in 2021. So Spielberg is involved, along with a few other people producing for Amblin Entertainment, alongside Chris Columbus. The other person they are getting to write on this is someone named Pozzi Ponzaroli. Do you know anything about this person other than that fantastic name? Because I have an interesting fact for you.
The best name, and that they look like Adam Sandler in the picture I'm looking at. But yeah, that's all I know.
I have a fun fact for you. Pozzi Ponzaroli
is a name.
The co-founder of it's no oh shoot, I lost it. What was the last name? What was the name last week of the comment that you read? Fifi Pastrami? Was it that?
Fifi Pastrami.
That's slightly better than Potsy Ponzaroli, but Potsy is the co-founder of Hideout Pictures, which has produced titles like the Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Where's he from? Oh, Virginia. Huh?
There's not a lot of info on like his past work. Like he doesn't have a huge track record.
Okay, well, here's what I think. I think Kevin Smith invented him for some reason because he needed to funnel the reboot through something.
What if it's so he can, because he notoriously loves the Goonies and other movies of this ilk. What if it's his invention in order to worm his way into writing on the Goonies sequel?
Right, because he knew that they'd never let
They're not going to hire Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
So he made up
Silent
Potsy.
Bob.
Yeah.
It's a real Potsy scheme, you know? A real Ponzi. Wait, hold on, fuck. It's a real Ponzi scheme, you know?
I liked Potsy. I got it.
Because Ponzi sounds more like Ponzi.
Yeah, but Potsy is his name.
We'll workshop it.
Potsy
we'll let you
sounds
guys know.
Enough like Ponzi.
Well, Ponzarelli is his last name.
That's true. But so. I thought Potsy worked.
Is Ponzi in Ponzi scheme short for Ponzarelli?
I don't believe so, but...
No. Charles Ponzi, Italian Charlotte. Whoa, hold on. This is the coolest. Charles Ponzi was an Italian charlatan and con artist who operated in the United States and Canada.
Oh, that's where it comes from?
Yeah. Oh, and his aliases included Charles Ponzi.
Huh.
Ponzarelli.
See, we are an educational podcast.
Cracking this wide open.
Yeah, Potsy Ponzaroli is known for Old Henry, which is something I've never heard of, the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, and Ted K. I don't know who this person is.
Because, Jodie, he's not real. I think you're right. This is Kevin Smith's way of writing Goonies 2.
He looks like a Potsy, though.
Like Potsy.
I found his Instagram. He and I have basically almost the same amount of followers on Instagram, and I am not writing on the Goonies sequel. So I don't know how this happens. Anyway, I think we're trailing.
You can tell we really
we're both looking on the internet for things.
What else?
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. The Goonies. Classic for a reason. Holds up with some notable problems that you would expect in a movie from the 80s. Don't love the fat shaming or the whatever they're doing with sloth or, some of the sort of racist undertones, but overall a magical piece of like childhood dream, fantasy movie. I said that so poorly.
No, I think that's right.
Headline, Goonies. Still good.
Good enough for me.
Still good. Good enough for me, yes. Yeah. So yeah, I would, like I said in the beginning, I would love to hear if our listeners have, like, if we had to do a top 5 of like our favorite childhood films, no other disclaimers involved, just favorite childhood films. Would Goonies be on it? What else would be on it?
Yes.
Are there things we didn't mention? Because I think specifically this movie has such a perfect, to me, combination of funny and sarcastic and also heartfelt. And like, that's a really specific, like I said, I was not the right age for Home Alone, so it never really got me. But it also struck me as leaning more towards the snippy, sarcastic side of things with less of the heart. But I could be wrong because I literally think I watched it once. But this definitely has like a very clear and significant sweet side.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that it's as a younger person, I don't know that what I would have said I really connect with in this movie is its sweet side. But watching it now, I'm like, man, that really,
yeah,
like
definitely.
it's just nice. We don't get a lot of like sincere and sweet, but not saccharine. It's a really fine line. And that It's in a movie with like kids making like dick jokes and cursing and stuff. Like,
right. Also, I just realized that the Josh Brolin's character in this is named Brandon Walsh.
Oh, yeah.
Like 90210.
No, I know. I was trying to. Where does the math line up on those?
Well, 90210 came out in the 90s. So this is obviously at least 5 to 10 years before.
Right. Duh. Huh.
Yeah. 90210 started in...
Not that it's so uncommon, but it's not John Smith.
No, it's not. I know.
Also,
that's why I was like, wait, what?
A funny thing I've never noticed, but that I have read a lot, is that at one point, Sean Astin calls Bran Josh.
Yeah.
I've never clocked it, though.
Me neither. It's underneath some other noises.
That's a very Spielberg thing, is that, like, being one of the, like, I guess best is subjective, but, like, one of the most loved directors of all time, like, something about him is that, like, he will again, he didn't direct this movie, but stuff like this just makes me feel like he did.
Yeah.
Like, he will choose a take that is not perfect if there's something specific that he loves in there that is not worth losing. And there are other movies that would pick a worse take because somebody said Josh than going for the better performance.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the Goonies. That was a delight. I had so much fun. It's been years, but man, took me right back. Mm-hmm. But next week, we are going to leave childhood behind for the moment and watch a movie that falls back into the category of heavenly creatures for me, which is, I think I've seen it. I'm convinced I've seen it, but I'm probably wrong.
I was just going to say, I think this is a movie I have and we'll check in next week. I think I have probably seen every part of this movie on cable, not in order, is my guess.
That might be true for me too. This came out again while I was working at the video store. And so I think that there's just a section of from late 94 through maybe mid 96 where if a movie came out and it was anywhere near something I might have been interested in, I assume I saw it.
You think you saw it? That makes sense.
Because I saw the trailers and over and over again playing in the back of my head while I was helping customers. And I saw the boxes on the walls and I reshelved and so even whether I saw it or not, in my head, I definitely did. So, and we never said what it was. We're watching Party Girl, which I'm really excited about. I love Parker Posey.
Me too.
Parker Posey in White Lotus this season played a North Carolina mom, and the first episode, a number of people who aren't familiar with North Carolina, myself included, were like, what the hell is that accent that she and Jason Isaacs are doing? Oh my God, that's so over the top. That's so fake sounding. Oh my God, that's terrible.
And then
all of a sudden specifically on TikTok, there were all these North Carolina people going to their moms and saying, please say these words, Buddhism. What was the other one? Oh, it was like, there's a list of words
I've seen, yeah.
And all of a sudden, everyone had to take their words back and say, oh, no, actually, what she's doing is perfection.
So funny.
A little bit about Party Girl for those people that are listening that aren't as familiar with it. It's from 1995, starring Parker Posey, directed by Daisy von Schurler-Meyer. It's just it's a classic of the like 90s indie movie world. A little synopsis: marries a free-spirited young woman living in New York City, arrested for organizing an underground rave. To repay her bail, she works as a clerk at a branch of the New York Public Library. It's just like, I don't even want to talk more about it because this synopsis is too detailed, but it's Parker Posey. It's from 1995. It's Parker Posey.
And we're watching it.
We're watching Party Girl because in Yellow Jackets, first of all, Van recommends this to a customer. And so it's not just something on her shelf. It's like a recommendation. And then in addition, the director has also directed a few episodes of Yellow Jackets.
Yeah. So we've got two good reasons for this one.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And three, Parker Posey.
Oh, right. And obviously Parker Posey.
Yeah.
Why hasn't she shown up in this show? I guess there are only so many actors, but she would make a ton of sense.
Why not? This one is easy to find. It is free in a bunch of places. It's free on Plex. It's apparently free on Amazon Prime if you have it. Free on Fandango, Roku, Sling, Pluto, Tubi, all the weird names that people have made up
to watch this movie.
Exactly. So we are going to watch and chat about this movie next week. And I'm very excited because I did not get enough of Parker Posey in White Lotus, even though she was one of the main characters. So I think that'll do it.
I think we did it.
They
can find us. I'll tell you where.
Cool.
WatchersPodNJ at Gmail. WatchersPodNJ on Instagram. I'm at AQAndreaQ.
And I am Jodie_Mim on Instagram. It's my art account. Feel free to follow me or not, depending on your interests. And I think maybe it would be nice for us to just remind people, since so many people have been doing it, that you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or you can email us, like we said, or DM us on Instagram. But yeah, we had a nice little run of reviews after our interview with Ashley Lyle, and it was just really nice to think about, like, to picture who we're talking to, you know?
Yeah, and especially now that we're in our off season, just less people are going to be listening, and so discoverability is even more important. So you would really be helping us out, and also very genuinely, we do love to hear from you, and the reviews really make my day.
Sweet, yeah. So yeah, that will do it for us this week, and we will see you next week at the library. One of my favorite places.
I love it there.
I will probably end up talking about how I worked at the library. Just FYI.
Can't wait.
I will find a reason to bring it up.
Yeah, I've never worked at a public library, but I was a library aide in middle school. Not to brag.
I didn't work at a public library. I worked at a university library, but still.
I'm trying to remember. I'm like, why do I feel like I worked at a library? But I worked at the writing center in undergrad that was housed in the library. So I spent a lot of time in the library. So that's basically like working at the library.
Yeah, we love a library. We love our library. We love librarians. I have a craft group that's all librarians and me. It's the best.
We'll have to eventually have Carrie Sullivan, Jersey's best librarian, on the show.
Definitely. Shout out to Carrie. All right. We will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.